Kevin was saying this thing that I was like, if only I hear this, that's a crime against humanity. We were talking about PJ Fleck, who's a Minnesota Golden Gopher. Kevin is a Minnesotan, and he's a very kind of eccentric, over the top coach, which is not very Minnesotan. It's a Pac-12 kind of thing, kind of a East, kind of a coastal thing to be spazzing out on the sideline. Now you think that might be necessary to breaking out of Minnesota.
Right. So PJ Fleck, America's coach, go Gophers. It's almost time. I'll be at the opening game.
Nice.
Really excited for that. And yeah, PJ, there's a type of Minnesotan, like a real diehard kind of, old school Minnesotan type that wants stoicism, that's uncomfortable with somebody who's too demonstrative. They feel like PJ is drawing attention to himself. And that's kind of a little verboten in Minnesota. We've got this kind of Scandinavian la of gente, tall poppy thing where you don't want to, the tallest nail gets hammered first. It's kind of a thing out here, a little bit. And but I think PJ's great. He's done great things for the program. At least we're in the conversation. I mean, we're probably not going to make the playoffs, but I mean, we're above 500. We went to that great bowl game in 2019. Yeah. We've got a team. We've got a stadium. We've got a team. It's a thing. And college football is about recruiting. And so you have this personality. He's in any case. But then what I was saying in the green room before Glenn started recording is that I have this theory that I think the same is true for someone like the great one, the purple one, Prince Rogers Nelson.
Sure.
I feel like one of the reasons he had to be, or he came to be so funky and he rocked so hard, is that in Minnesota you have to break through to really you got to grab them by the scruff and say, no, we're doing this thing. Yeah. We are dancing. We're going to be funky. We're going to be from the north. It's cold out, right? You want to go home and you want to have somebody in between the sheets with you, don't you? Okay,
sometimes
we're going to dance.
Sometimes it snows in April.
Sometimes it snows in May.
Yeah. Well, I know that's a Prince song. That's a Prince song.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah.
From the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane about to visit Glen Rockney. Crypto told me I should bring the Glock with me, so I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
He needed to break out. From Minnesota.
Oh yeah,
it's suppression. It's kind of a suppression by design, right?
It's another form, and I love Minnesota. I have children by 2 women from Minnesota. I'm not from Minnesota. I'm from North Dakota, but I have a destiny with this state. I went to the U. I'm back here now. I'm here in beautiful St. Paul. I'm on Summit Avenue right now, the most beautiful street in America. They pulled Tim Waltz from down the street to the big time, to the big league, to the show. So Minnesota's in the discourse right now. And I think it's like another kind of Puritanism out here. It's not the same as the New England style, but it's a different style. And it's kind of this soft socialism light kind of sure. Don't stand out, go along to get along, long winters. And I this sounds like maybe like I'm being punitive here. I'm not. I mean, it's all of a part, right? So you want, what do we say out here? The flip side of Minnesota nice is Minnesota ice. And even Minnesota nice, for those who really know, Minnesota nice it has a kernel of passive aggressiveness in it.
I see.
I mean, I could go on about this for a long time, but I don't know that that's the purpose of the pod. But we're both in.
It's not. But I wanted to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like that we're both in baseball caps. Somebody on the Bird website said that men have to stop wearing baseball caps. Yeah. No, it's never happening.
What? Okay, that is crazy to me, because the last 10 to 15 years have been probably not men haven't gotten too many life hacks that we've been able to do. We've been kind of under the spotlight, right? Now women have had to go through that for longer. Like they got all types of stuff, that rules that they enforce on themselves and all that. But for men, for the last thing that's developed in the last 10 to 15 years is that we can wear like sweats and a shirt and a baseball hat to like 80% of things. And I don't take that from me. That's a constitutional amendment as far as I'm saying. Like, don't take that from me. We get the hats are our yoga pants. Like we get to
right. This is our Lululemon.
Yes.
Ladies. Yeah. You can't take that from us.
And they know it too, because they've,
sure.
I mean, I will say they don't want you to wear a hat the first time they meet you, because there's possible Norwood situation.
Right. There might be some Norwooding happening. Yeah.
Right. They can't wear yoga pants on the first date. Then it's the same thing.
I've got like a little distinguished gray going on. I decided I'm gonna wear the hat for this episode. But if you wanna see my Norwooding and my distinguished gray, go check out Art of Darkness on YouTube. There you go.
Well, I mean, you and Brad are definitely two different sides of the same coin.
Brad's totally a cue ball bald, but he can do it somehow. I don't know how.
And he's jacked.
I don't know how he pulls. Brad is jacked.
You're not Moby. He will never be Moby.
No,
so that's what's good about that. If you're bald and jacked, you are like Statham. You're there's so many. Like you're just a linebacker, and that's
I'm getting ready. Well, yeah, he played football. I was raised by women. I never played football.
But you did the play. Yeah.
I do theater. But Brad and I are getting ready to do our second live show for the podcast for Art of Darkness, artofdarkpod.com. We do biographical profiles of dead artists, and we're just about to put our Cormac McCarthy episode into wide release. It's going to go out tomorrow. But
unless
we're doing
unless you're a patron, right? I mean, because you can just be hearing that like at any time when you get,
that's one of the things we do for our patrons on Patreon and Substack is we give them the core episodes a week early. But we're getting ready to do the live show in Detroit on October 26th. 2024 here this year. We're doing the death of Harry Houdini, because Houdini died in Detroit right around Halloween. So it's going to be like a costume party. It's like our annual, it's like our meetup for the year too for Art of Darkness. And I have to confess, like I've been laying off the gym, and I know I have to go on stage next to Kelly. It's like I'm going to have to at least do like a week or 2 days ahead of it, just to like kind of do you know what I mean? I'm never going to catch up to the guy because he goes hard. He has land. I'm not going to say where, but he has like a little patch of land in Michigan, and we went and had a corporate retreat, right, for the podcast up there. And that guy, he gets up at 5 a.m. to start writing, and then he like cuts wood, he like axes wood just to like clear the land. And then he'll do like a prison style workout.
Damn.
And this is all before I get my ass out of bed. Like 10. And then he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go bathe in the stream down the way." I'm like, "What? Who are you? What is?"
Very similar to the dichotomy of the Rare Candy podcast, and I'll let you guys decide which one does what. We're gonna get you right back to the episode, but I just wanted to let you guys know of a few other things we offer at Rare Candy Industries. We have a Substack with free and paid subscription options. Free subscribers get access to all written content. That includes Bob's Red Pill. That's the best thing going on the internet right now. Trust me. Paid subscribers get full access to our premium episode feed. And that's just every episode we don't necessarily want to share with the general public, if you know what I'm saying. Again, that's rarecandy.substack.com. We also have merch. That link's a little long for me to say right now, but go to the description, go to our merch store, and find a shirt that's right for you. We have Rare Candy shirts, Dr. Bronner soap label shirts, Rishi mushroom shirts, all types of stuff there. Check it out. There's got to be something for you. And lastly, check us out on social media. On Instagram, we're Rare Candy Pod, but on Twitter, we're at Rare Candy Pod 1. All right, enough of that. Let's get you back into the episode. I get up early, but it ain't to do. I mean, I pick up a book and read, and then I'm a cardio meandering walker guy at this point. But Sai is like jacked and like and just a genius, as we're gonna cite today. He's coming back soon, guys. He's coming back soon. But he's I wish he was here for this episode, but because he would have a lot of insight on this. But yes. patreon.com/artofdarkpod, and then what's the website again? Your actual
artofdarkpod.com. Everything's Art of Dark Pod.
Everything's Art of Dark Pod. And then your Twitter is @Kautzmania.
Kautzmania. Yes,
so,
indeed. Yeah.
So everybody, oh, there it is right there. So you have the everybody go check that out. Now today we're going to talk about a couple of things. Of course, the meat of the episode is going to be about Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. But before we get into that, Kevin, you've recently, and I don't know what to call it. I know you have a more proper term for it, but is it an audio drama, an audio play?
Yeah, it's a radio play, old timey radio. Yeah, there's a theater company in town here in the Twin Cities called Dark Pony. Well, they're called Shadow Horse Theater, and they do a project called Dark Pony Radio, and they do horror radio dramas. And our friend, one of the company basically asked us, hey, say, can you write something for us? And I had this idea for like an AI driven horror drama anyway, where a guy finds himself in prison and he was involved in the creation of an AI, and he's convinced that the AI has framed him. He may be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, or it might be a combination of both. He might be a little crazy and it might be a little real. It's like a neo-Lovecraftian AI horror radio play drama called Basilisk. And if you go on Spotify and you look up Dark Pony Radio Basilisk, you can't miss it. Part 1 is out now already. It's called Eternal September. And old heads, internet old heads will know what that means. We can talk about that a little bit if you want, Glenn. And then part 2 is
I don't know what that means. I don't know.
Yeah. And then part 2 is coming out soon, and that's called The King's Pact. So it's Basilisk. I wrote it with my very good friend, Abby Lucas. She's a director. We've written 3-4 screenplays together, and we wrote this, and we're working on Killdozer the musical. So people who know about Marvin Heemeyer and the Killdozer, we're writing that now. But Basilisk is really for people who are anointed, very online people who know. I mean, if you know about Rocco's Basilisk and that thought experiment, already you're the audience for Basilisk. If you don't, you're going to find out what it is.
Exactly.
And So Eternal September, Glenn, it's an old, like an internet old head bulletin board type gripe where back in the day, and I'm looking it up right now to make sure I get it, the specifics, but back in the day, every September on the internet, like in the early 90s, and I think even in the 80s, there would be a wave of new internet users in September when all of the college students would get access to the internet through their universities. So they would flood the message boards, and they would not know netiquette, which is a kind of a gross portmanteau, but we know what that is, right? Back in the day, the internet was totally brand new. People didn't know how to behave. They didn't know what they were doing. So the old heads were like, oh God, it's September. Well, it's September again. Here come all the new users. We're going to have to teach them how to do it. Well, so Eternal September, and I'm just going to read right from Wikipedia, but it's a cultural phenomenon during the period beginning around late 93, early 94, when internet service providers began offering Usenet access to many new users. Prior to this, the only sudden changes in the volume of new users of Usenet occurred each September. So it's basically like when AOL opened the floodgates to the normies, that's Eternal September. So we are still in Eternal September.
I see.
And it's more eternally now September than it's ever been before. Dude, you're of an age where you remember the before times, don't you?
Kind of. I just didn't have a computer. Like I did, but it was kind of like the family one where you would just go on, and it's like I would go on and be like, hey, I want to see read about this. But I was, by the time I started like using the computer, I was probably like 16 or 17, like actually going to like blogs and stuff. So I like a lot of the early like GeoCities stuff. Like I was not around for any of that. Like I didn't know what any of my parents used to have a thing called Web TV, which was like a failed experiment, dude. It was just a complete failed product. It was like the Palm Pilot level of like bad, where because we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my parents still wanted like kind of a computer, and it was before we got the compact Presario. And there was a a keyboard that would connect to your TV, and you could just go on the internet on your TV, which, kind of forward thinking, really. But it was just so much. It was so much thing. It was like a wired in keyboard that you had. You couldn't get too far away from the TV, and it was very stupid. But yeah,
I remember when Sega, I think the Genesis, had a cable TV upgrade, or it was like a cable cord upgrade where you could get the Sega channel.
Yeah.
And it would give you access to a catalog of 100 games, and they would change every month. And for some reason, my parents, allowed me to have that. But I was online. Too young, and I lived that shift from 93. I lived that entire period. It was very, very strange to watch, man. And I just wish, a lot like crypto, right? But I just wish back in the day I had somebody had given me $500 to buy domain names. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So people made bank on
Sure.
domain names. I mean,
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody just sold friend.com or .a or something. You could still do it anyway. Yeah, Glenn, you were saying.
Oh no, but just to go back to Basilisk, I listened to it yesterday. Again, it's on Spotify. You guys can just listen to it at work and
Please
everything.
go.
Yeah,
After this episode, go listen to it.
yeah,
Please.
just do it. It's very entertaining, and I love audio dramas. Like I went to my short dude Lebowski tenure of college, went about the same way, but I did study radio there, and I've always wanted to do that type of work and stuff, and be parts of it. So I was kind of jealous. I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. I'd love to do things like this, and it's very inspiring. I think audiobooks for short stories, I think they need to, like, even just short fiction stories need to kind of adopt that model. I think that could be a very big thing that starts to come back. But anyways, my favorite part of that thing is because it's quite funny. One thing you didn't say is that it's quite funny. And there's of course this man who's imprisoned in the new like techno jail. It takes place Menlo. There's a lot of Menlo Park mentioned, kind of Silicon Valley big tech stuff. And there's a part where when the woman whom he has a child with is on a conjugal visit with him. The man is dreaming of escaping and saying, well, we'll live like the Amish. And she's like, you're in big tech. And he goes, techno Amish. And I mean, if you're online, especially in the sphere that we're on, you look at that and you're like, that's this LARP that's happening. And I don't need to expand on it. It's hilarious. This kind of like, it's almost become a platitude that like a sign you hang in your front yard that like live off the grid while you're on the grid kind of situation.
Right. We want to live like the Amish, but with Starlink. Or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's I could live off the land as long as I have high speed internet. 24/7.
Exactly. Yeah. The 5G goes in tomorrow. While my wife is making pastries, Amish pastries, it's going right underneath there.
Right.
So look, we have much to discuss today. I mean, we're discussing a monolith. We are discussing, perhaps, in my opinion, perhaps the most important movie to ever exist. It's very possible that that's the case. You certainly can make a case for it. It's up there with Citizen Kane in terms of what it's done for the medium, and what it's done beyond film, I think, is even more interesting. But we're talking about Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. And Kevin and Brad at Art of Darkness have a proper Stanley Kubrick episode, which is very thorough. Very thorough. It's really good, and I've listened to it twice because I've been covering a lot of Kubrick source material on Gain of Fiction, and it's very, the guy is just, I mean, he is, we talked about it on the Apocalypse Now episode that we did on both of our premium feeds, but he is another Rorkian figure that just did what he did and was forward thinking when everybody else was kind of hoping that he wouldn't be so forward thinking, because it's tough to fund that. It's tough to reap the rewards of it in real time. But we're still talking about him nowadays. I might even be more popular now. It's just so crazy, but it's a breathtaking film. And I'm going to kick it over to Kevin to talk about his experience with it. But every time I watch it, even though I'm working to get my attention span back to a 90s style attention span, this movie, you will not have interest in your phone during this movie. You are sucked in. You are sucked in with like a gravitational pull to this movie. and you'll just sit there just locked in on it. And if anybody hasn't seen it, go watch it right now. I mean, it's unbelievable. But Kevin, your experience with this movie, your experience with Kubrick, I want to hear it all.
Wow. I mean, where do you even begin? I mean, I would love, again, for people later, please, finish this episode, but yeah, go back and listen to the Art of Darkness Stanley Kubrick episode. That's one where I feel like we had a breakthrough for the pod, because, our first episode was an hour. And it was right now the episodes are 4 hours on average. The core episodes. We
did a cool episode. Cy and I did an hour-long Led Zeppelin episode and an hour-long Beatles episode in like 2020 or 2021. We're just like, what? Then we're like, we do these 4-hour Prince mega episodes now. It's how it works. You don't feel the confidence. You feel like no one wants to hear that, but you realize once it's done, everybody's like, wish it was longer.
Yeah. I mean, so when if you become an Art of Darkness maxi and you go all the way back to the beginning of the journey, you'll sort of see how the show evolved. And there were certain episodes that were real breakthroughs. Brad did one with the Garden of Earthly Delight, Bosch. That was a real fascinating moment because there's not much biographical material on Bosch. So Brad had to do this very creative historiographical take on Bosch. And so there are certain episodes where we break the mold. And the Kubrick episode was one where it was probably the nature of Kubrick's work itself, the fact that he is so, he's fairly demanding, of his audiences. He's not. He doesn't make it easy for you. Yeah, and so maybe that gave me the courage to sort of slow down and to go, we're going to do our very best. But even now, I think that episode is under 3 hours. And I go, gosh, you could do an entire Kubrick podcast. I guess
people do.
Yeah,
but it's also not. People do, but it's also not as good as what you guys did.
Well, that's
no, it's true. I have scoured, and everybody has this kind of eye-rolling, overexposed mentality, like kind of like, another Kubrick. Now I guess we have to watch a Kubrick movie, and it's like, stop lying. Like I live to watch a Kubrick movie. Every time I look for any opportunity to do so. I sandwich them into our program.
Yeah, right. I mean, and you were talking on the Apocalypse Now episode that we just did. You mentioned Barry Lyndon, and my mind immediately goes, I gotta make time to watch Barry Lyndon. When do I have 6 hours to watch Barry Lyndon? Like you say the name of one of the movies, and I go, oh yeah, it's time to rewatch that. I remember 2001 being exposed in my small town in central western North Dakota. A friend of mine was like a evangelical Protestant, and his father was our chess instructor at the high school. We started our chess club at the high school, and Kubrick was a big chess head. Oh gosh, I have Kubrick stories. And I remember, must have been 14 or 15, and his dad was just like, "You're watching this. We are screening this for you." And he put on a big, he had like a projector screen in the basement, and I just remember it blew our little minds. We didn't know what we were doing. And I have a 15-year-old daughter now, and I'm trying to imagine what she would make of it. Girls mature faster than boys, so she might appreciate it more, but who knows? In any case, that was my first exposure to it. And of course, I gobbled all of the Kubrick body of work in my teens and in my 20s. And, so I go way back with Kubrick. The best screening of 2001, the only proper cinema screening I saw of it was very special. I was living in Washington Heights in Manhattan at the time, and it must have been 2018. And there's an incredible, if you're in New York City, look up the Heights Theater. It is this old, beautiful single screen, like a temple of cinema in Washington Heights. And they, for a period of time, like in the late 60s, well, actually, I can tell you, 2001 was the last film that was screened there in the late 60s. Wow. This is one of those cinemas you walk in and it's all gilded statuary and gold and velvet, and it puts cinema in a context that's appropriate. And the last film they screened in the late 60s, before the multiplex kind of thing kicked off, right, was 2001. And then I think that the place was taken over by some sort of like a charismatic preacher, and but they maintained the place. And then in the 2010s, it was handed back over to some other group, and I think Lin-Manuel Miranda got involved. Okay, great, but he got involved, and they sort of revived this place, and it's this total destination in the Heights, and they do these event style screenings there. So I saw like On the Waterfront with the kid who is the pigeon keeper or helps Brando's character keep the pigeons. Yeah, and that actor is there before the screening talking about what it was like to work with Brando, stuff like that. And for this screening in 2018, they screened the 70 millimeter print with and then Keir Dullea was there, and he's the fellow who played Bowman in 2001. So he was there, and he was telling stories about working with Kubrick and being on the set and doing the film. So, and that screening, oh man, yes, go home and watch 2001. Throw it on your TV. But man, if you're in an area where they are going to screen it on the big screen, that is the way. Needless to say, I know that's such a cinephile, that's such a hacky, but it's just so true. You can't watch this movie on your phone. You can, but man, oh man, it's meant to wash over you. Hal's eye is meant to be as big as the wall in front of you. It's meant to take up your whole. Go on, Glenn.
No, I'm like, yes, like just agreeing with you. I have many things to say, but you're correct. It's just this. It is this movie that overpowers you, and that's the way you have to watch Kubrick. All of his movies. Now he has a couple that I'm not as enthusiastic about, but the same effect still happens. Like you sit down and you submit to Stanley Kubrick, which we are in. It's weird how popular he is now in a time where people don't submit to art anymore. Really, like people just don't do that. They love artists. They have a kind of a love-hate relationship with them, but they love artists. There's fan accounts, there's all these people, but the art itself, they tend, and I do attribute this to Reddit and blogs and all that stuff. They view themselves as a Pauline Kael or as a somebody who's there to tell you what the movie is. It's no. You sit down and you learn what the movie is through Stanley Kubrick, and he's not going to tell you either. You have to sit there and really just take it all in, and don't pause it. And what happened to that? No. Just sit there and take it. Multiple viewings. This movies used to stay in theaters for like a long time because there wasn't video releases. So 2001 stayed in the box office for, even though it was kind of panned by a lot of people. John Lennon had I believe John Lennon had a forever ticket to go like that theater. I was the one I don't even know if it was the one maybe you were talking about. I don't know which theater, but he was there. And he was a big proponent of the movie and Kubrick. Absolutely. And his photographer for Yoko and the Daniel Richter, I want to say, is one of the apes in Dawn of Man. Do I have that right? The Dawn of Man. The Daniel Richter, I think it is. One of the Dawn of Man like ape actors. I think is.
Well, so yeah, and people maybe now don't know this, but yeah, 2001 was a massive box office success despite being critically panned. My understanding too is I think he screened it for the first screening was in Washington, and then the follow-on screening was in New York City for industry, and like 240-ish people walked out of the New York screening. God. And I believe he cut 17 minutes from it finally, probably grudgingly, and then that went into wide release, and then the hippies got it. And MGM changed their poster to something like The Ultimate Trip, and they played it. They didn't know what they had on their hands, and so people would show up and they'd get high and they'd watch this. At one screening, very famously, a guy ran through the screen saying, "I see God," or "It's God," or something like that. Like they were having. This was 1968, people. So the boomers. If you want to understand the boomer psyche, this is a very, very important film. And I think that's one of the reasons people still, as you say, submit to Kubrick and his work, is that the grammar of cinema that he codified is everywhere now.
Yeah. Poorly imitated too, like real, like that. And that's why people roll their eyes at Kubrick's actual films, because you'll see pale imitations. Like average Netflix slop is just like AI Kubrick.
Yes, Absolutely, and they get the pacing wrong, and they get the they're really not artists.
No.
I mean, they're more like craftspeople, kind of imitating. But yeah, Kubrick was a visual fine artist. I mean, every frame. I mean, I'm looking at a frame right now. I've got it going in the background. But it's like every one of these things. You feel like you could pause it, frame it, put it up on the wall. And how many filmmakers are doing anything like that? It's really majestic and incredible. But also, like, as an artist too, this got rocked. I mean, he got hammered in the press for this.
Yeah.
And like the party after in New York apparently was just the tension was just thick.
Like the movie, it's like hearing the air hose, like that, like air hose, oxygen, and the breathing. Like it feels like that's what the sound is of, like, people reacting to it. That's why it's such a meta movie. Like, and you looked at a monolith and you don't know what to think.
Yes, right. Of course, the film is the monolith.
Yes.
Here's one of the. I hope you don't mind. I read a little bit.
Please.
This is what we do in Art of Darkness, so I fall back to this. But a reviewer, Pauline Kael, took a nasty swipe at Kubrick in 2001, writing, "It's fun to think about Kubrick really doing every dumb thing he wanted to do, building enormous science fiction sets and equipment, never even bothering to figure out what he was going to do with them. In some way, it's the biggest amateur movie of them all, complete even into the amateur movie obligatory scene, the director's little daughter in curls telling daddy what kind of present she wants. It's a monumentally unimaginative movie." That one got Kubrick. Can you imagine writing that about this film? Yeah. What is going on? What did they want that they weren't getting? I don't understand what they were seeing. Maybe they did see a cut that was 20 minutes longer. So maybe they were just like, done.
True, but still. Yeah, but still, yeah. Like Apocalypse Now, Redux, we were talking about how maybe some of that stuff's really not that important to the film that was added in there. That would never make me give Apocalypse Now a bad review. Watching the extended cut like that. But Pauline Kael is somebody who had I obviously she's a genius and is kind of the crux of film criticism, I would say, like for the new Hollywood era especially. But she is put out books. She had a problem, I think, with some Kubrick films, but then also Clint Eastwood. So it's really funny, like some of my favorites, like she just wasn't feeling it. Might be too alpha for her. It's
a little bit. I mean, I know too. And of course, we're taking her like a paragraph she wrote in the heat of the heat of the moment.
Whom among us hasn't had it?
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. But it's and people will also reassess work over time. But the critique that people make against Kubrick is that the high formalism is cold. I mean, and you can make that critique and go, that's, and I will respect that. If you say it's not really my cup of tea, I'm more into Godard, I'm more into sort of cinema verite. I prefer, if you're a real cinephile, and I understand there's also people who'll be like 2001 is like, midwit's first masterpiece. You know what I mean? But I've cracked through any pretension. This is a banger. It's iconic for a reason. It's also it's fun. It's a fun movie. It's got there's humor, and the malice of Hal is so dark and funny and prescient. What a great character. And it's just it's not even Hal isn't there. Where is Hal? Hal's in the cloud. What is Hal?
Unreal. Guys on tablets, guys watching very realistic looking tablets. A movie like that to generate the amount of conspiracies, either true or false. That's when you have a hit, dude. I'm sorry. It's just you watch it and you're like, nothing looks like this anymore. Nothing, even space movies. There's been some great space movies that have come out that take place in space. None better. None better. But what's that? Go ahead.
No. The attention to detail is magnificent. I have an old timer buddy in New York I haven't seen in such a long time. I hope he's still out there kicking around. But he would tell stories about because he did practical effects. Mm-hmm. And he claimed to have worked on Rosemary's Baby, and where they where the woman's body where she suicides herself or is pushed out the window, and I think it's a Volkswagen is smashed in Rosemary's Baby, and there's blood all over the sidewalk, whatever. He's like, yeah, we had to go get a bunch of pig's blood from Hoboken and da da da. So he has stories like that. He worked on 2001. He worked on the models. So if you wanted to get this guy going after he'd had 2 or 3 glasses of wine, you just had to mention Stanley Kubrick. He would fly into a rage, this guy, because he hated Stanley Kubrick so much, because Kubrick would call at 8 a.m, like he said, every day from England. And he was the most demanding, insane director that this guy had ever worked with. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but it's fun to hear from an old timer who was actually worked on the film doing the models. But Kubrick was involved in every single frame, every single element of this film. It took him years to put this together.
And he also took out insurance on the film. And you know, this is a RC kind of gray area, so I'm saying this is a report from what Stanley Kubrick did, not what I believe. But the Stanley Kubrick took out insurance on this movie in case that humans had gone to like Mars, because he knew it was going to take a while. And this is happening in 1968 when there's all sorts of Werner von Braun situations happening. Like, we're going here, we're going there. We got something ready for Saturn. We have all of these things. So he's like, if I make this movie and the shit's already happened, and then we see images and it doesn't look anything like what I'm doing, I'm fucked. So I got to take insurance out on this, which is interesting, given the way he normally acts. Yes, that is attention to detail, but it's also kind of hedging, which it doesn't seem very Kubrickian. But this is truly one giant leap for mankind, like what he's doing right now. Now I'd like to just get into the movie proper right now, just because it's, man, you start and you think your Blu-ray player is broken immediately. There's no picture. You're hearing the song, The Dawn of Man, but you're like, did you plug the remember back in the day with the 3 cables, like when you'd have to plug it in, like, did you plug the video one in? Yeah, everybody does. You're all high with your friends and stuff, trying to put on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the that starts out, and then you watch basically I don't know how long it ends up being, like 27 to 30 minutes of apes and like a Western movie landscape. It looks like a Western that's about to happen. And then you realize you're seeing these very, he wanted them to be more humanoid. He wanted like boobs and dicks and stuff. But this is a rated G movie, which even to me is kind of outrageous with how scary it kind of is. But he didn't want it. I guess the studios pushed back and was like, just go find some like weird small people that can hop around, which Daniel Richter is one of them, and he was John Lennon and Yoko Ono, one of their major photographers. So there's this big connection between the two. But Daniel Richter is the leader amongst the tribe of the apes, and these apes are learning how to become human. And by learning how to become human, you learn how to kill things, and because that's not strategic. I mean, humans murder, right? Like humans inherently can murder people, which, I know there's other species out there that, like, they say, I think dolphins like rape or something. There's a lot of weird things that happen, but like humans inherently, what separates from the rest of them is to take another human's life and not eat them, and I guess there's this monolith that shows up, massive monolith. It's breathtaking when you look at it. You can't look at anything else. And the apes don't know what to do with it, or the monkeys don't know what to do with it. But then all of a sudden they're beating each other to death or beating one of their own tribesmen to death with a bone.
Well, they're beating, and I'm not trying to
no, please
fuck ants here, but they're beating, because it's the thing to do is to read the book in tandem with the film. There are the others, so it's the other tribe. They have this chimp out display on one side of the watering hole, and the others come down to the watering hole, and it's all a display. They never actually fight until Moonwatcher gets. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to correct you.
No, it's
Yeah,
Arthur
but
C. Clarke's 2001 that was essentially at the Chelsea Hotel written because Kubrick wanted a long form of pretty much of Arthur C. Clarke's very short but very good story, The Sentinel. He was able to this is Kubrick's attention. He's such a literary director too, to where he's like, I need source material, and they're like, why don't you just make the movie? No, we need source material. Can you write the book for me?
Right. I think this is the one case where Kubrick didn't work from some. I mean, you could say The Sentinel was the germ, so there was a germ of the creation. That's little known that Kubrick. I mean, even Eyes Wide Shut is based on Schnitzler's dream story. Traum novel. You know, he always had source material. But in this case, he grabbed Arthur C. Clarke and said, let's write a novel. And I think part of the beauty of this is that the novel, if you feel like you've been left cold by 2001 and you don't quote unquote get it, just go and read the novel and watch it again, and you will have the narrative of the novel in your mind. And there are some deviations, but you'll have this like imprint, this literary imprint that will give you kind of the internal story of what you're watching on the screen. It was very, very brave of Kubrick not to do voiceover.
Yeah, because he wanted to have like a Sir David Attenborough style British like nature documentary voiceover, which
what would ruin it. It would not be good.
The absence of sound is a character in the movie.
It's a film about our humanity, and the reason you can watch it over and over again is because as you approach the Star Child, as you go through this trip through time, which we're all going through, the film will change with and for you, and you're gonna read a new story into 2001 wherever you are, wherever you meet it. And all great art does this, but 2001 does it in a really intentional and conspicuous way.
Yeah, and so there's a beautiful cutaway shot, you know, around these times, these movies, they're very influential. It's just like Lawrence of Arabia with the snap and the match and like the snap sound that goes to the desert and with the desert sun. It's something that, again, you'll watch it now. If you watch a bunch of movies now, it's not as impressive to you, but like at the time, that was kind of like a whoa thing where they throw the bone into the air and then a bone-like spaceship. Humans have now gone to space. Which I love. I love about this because, you know, you see that monolith at first, you're like, this monolith in my mind, or what is this? This big black rectangle that's really smooth. What the hell is this? And you realize as the movie goes on that monolith is there for major transformations in humanity. But then you could also argue that humans don't really transform that much. They just find new ways to hurt themselves.
That is sort of the argument that's being made, and the question that this is posing to us is like, it on the face of it, it might seem like it's showing us the evolution of man, but you could also do a reading of it where Kubrick is basically saying nothing happens.
We build toys.
He's a nothing happens, bro.
He is a nothing ever happens guy.
Nothing ever happens.
Nothing
changes. Like it only the appearance of it changes, but fundamentally we are still these apes cowering in the dark. And ultimately, what can we do to change our nature?
Yeah, and you have these beautiful shots. And I think some people, like, I've listened to some podcasts, I think, and they're like hard sci-fi guys. I really don't care to listen to people who really value hard sci-fi. I don't care to hear their opinion on this. I've come to realize, because they're watching it for a different reason, you know, and I just, it's not what I take out of this. And I like sci-fi, but I wouldn't say I'm into like hard sci-fi. I like kind of dystopian, Philip K. Dick kind of stuff, like where there's an element of reality to it, and stuff. So I don't view this movie. It is a sci-fi film. Make no mistake, especially with Arthur C. Clarke penning the source material and basing it off of a very famous short story, as I said, The Sentinel, which you can go just check out on YouTube. There's wonderful 22 minutes, like the thing on YouTube of The Sentinel. It's a very, very short story. But there's these beautiful, you know, you have the classical music arrangements that you hear and these beautiful, just kind of hypnotizing shots of humans in space. It's like a Tomorrowland advertisement. But nobody seems to be super excited that it's happening. It's not Willy Wonka where kids are seeing bubbles and they just don't know what to do. Everybody else is, and there's a guy just kind of snoozing, pen floating in the air, delivering kind of like stewardesses delivering like trays of food. You have a Hilton, you have the Howard Johnson space hubs. Love the touches of the corporate. Like, it's to know that we've been in space for a while now, and that capitalism reached space along with people.
Right. It's right, and the Soviets reached space as well.
That's true. We are in the heart of we are in the space race.
There's still this kind of Cold War implication still there. There are a couple of little factoids that are kind of fun. And I learned this from the actor at the Heights. He told us how when you watch, and it was his wife who noticed it, this actor's wife, the fellow who played Bowman. When you watch 2001 Next, look for the moment where in the first third of the film, where the fellow is on his way to give the briefing. It's right around the time where he talks to his daughter back on Earth. You know how he sits with the foreign scientists. Do you know that passage that I'm talking about?
Yes, of course. Of course.
There's a voiceover that comes on, and it's like an announcement you would hear at a mall. So and so is missing if you're missing a child, the child has been found at da. In this case, it's like a blue shawl has been found, da, and you don't notice it because it's very fleeting. And it's very strange that he would do that. Like, why would you announce that a shawl has been found and lost? In fact, it doesn't make any sense. He's covering a continuity error because in that sequence, did you know this? In that sequence, there's a shot where there's a shawl and then there's a shot where there's not. And it must have drove him crazy that that was what he had to work with. And so he did the little boys, but that's the attention to detail that you can expect.
And he's making the movie for him. That's the thing. It's like, he has to be able to look at it and say, like, this is how I want it, which there's a neuroses to where it probably never is going to be what you want. Cause again, you said he begrudgingly had to even cut 17 minutes from the final cut, but something like that certainly could not satisfy him. Whereas again, Reddit's not invented yet. No one's going to notice that for many years, if at all, because it is. I even looked for it because I had heard you tell the story before. I even looked for it this time. I barely noticed it. Like, and this is with somebody who's like, I was with intent with this watch to find that scene,
The other thing that I learned recently was the practical effect of the floating pen. Do you know how they did that one?
No.
They just had a glass wheel or like a sheet of glass that they just turned. And so the pen is like, fixed to glass. That's it.
Oh, wow.
That's just such a simple effect to make it seem like the pen is floating. I love stuff like that.
It just looks breathtaking too. Like, you just watch it. It just looks breathtaking. One thing I'd like to point out before we get into the kind of where it starts to turn into a little bit of a horror film is just the kind of mundanity of the cast. And I'm not saying they do a bad job. I think they do an excellent job. It's just there's not that Kubrickian big actor. There's no Kirk Douglas. There's no person that takes you away from the experience of the film where you're like, oh, Kirk Douglas.
That's a great point. And I guarantee that's on purpose.
100%. He had access to all these people. He had done Spartacus at this point, taken over Spartacus and saved that film. He had done Paths of Glory with Kirk Douglas.
I think he had fallen out with Kirk Douglas at some point.
But anyway, but I mean, he had access to
anybody would have wanted to work with him. He
could have had, I mean, who's the Sean Connery, right? Like, he could have had somebody like that in this film, or somebody, of that sort. And I'm sure he could have done it, like, or somebody of that name. But it allows you to kind of just view these people as moving parts. And Barry Lyndon stars Ryan O'Neal, but I do think it offers the same thing as kind of just like this, humans are just this small ant in this whole situation. Like, even Ryan O'Neal, you kind of like, you forget that it's Ryan O'Neal halfway through the film of Barry Lyndon. He has this idea, his later films, you would get the okay, that's Jack Nicholson, that's Shelley Duvall. Like, his later films, I think that's Tom Cruise, that's Nicole Kidman. They have that value to them, but the cast just feels like a part of the ship. Like, they kind of just feel like these like NPC characters in a video game.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm. The dialogue in that space hub where they're talking to all the other nations, the people where the scientists say, hey, we had heard there's something weird going on up there, and that part just
they think
really unsettling.
It might be a contagion.
Yeah,
And there's this
like an Andromeda
like
strain kind of situation.
there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's that weird kind of tension in that scene too, because you can tell it's like, well, and that scene very clearly echoes what's happening in the first passage of the film, where you have the one tribe and the others.
That's true.
That's exactly the same.
That's a good point. Like again, like we haven't evolved. Like we've built the most beautiful. We've done everything humans can do, but have we evolved as humans? We're still, that's kind of what I like.
It's still us and the Russians, right? And we have a little more sophistry around it, a little more cultivation, but it's still finally the same thing. And the actor who plays opposite, the fellow who speaks to his daughter, the man, his performance there is very clever, very, very well done. Yeah.
I could see an actor not enjoying doing that either. Kind of an actor going like, does this work? While you're doing it, and then seeing it going, oh man, of course it works. It's great. And so then of course our everyone's briefed of the real it's still kind of still a little bit kind of ambiguous, but it's going like, hey, there's something going on, but we're not telling anybody of this. We're just doing our normal space duty that we've been doing, since whenever. And everybody else is like, great speech. That's a great speech. Like, your speech really injected these guys going, hey, your speech there was really enlightening. So it kind of is this Kubrickian humor, because he is a very humorous guy, is going like, this guy who just gives like a kind of a terrifying, like, everything's fucked kind of speech, but like, maintain order, please. And everyone's just like, wow, that was a really good speech. That was great, man. Just kind of like the mundanity of space travel. That part's really good. And again, this is kind of where the Sentinel comes in now, is when and I'm forgetting the guy's name. I keep saying the guy who's talking to his daughter and everything. Who what is the character's name?
I always forget.
That's what I'm saying.
Is it Poole and Bowman?
Yes, Dr. Dave Bowman, and I believe is the guy. That's what I mean. We're just like sorry,
Dr.
Haywood Floyd Haywood.
It's Dr. David Bowman, Frank Poole, Haywood Floyd. Yeah,
right. Okay, so these guys head out and they go to see this, perhaps the thing that's a little bit scary that nobody else has access to, and we head to, and it's the moon, right? We head to the is it on the moon? It's on the moon, right? Or Jupiter. Yeah, it's on the moon. It's
on the moon, and then they go to Jupiter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so they head to the moon, and it's like already been excavated to show that we've been in the moon for many, many years, and we're developing these things here. But there's something scary happening. Something got found, and we're right back where the apes were. Right? What the hell is this? It's this monolith, and this is similar, though it's different in tone, which is what a lot of authors have trouble with Kubrick. Is Kubrick will kind of be relatively faithful to your book, but he'll change the tone. And in The Sentinel by Arthur C. Clarke, it's this kind of like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is from another civilization. This beautiful pyramid, glistening pyramid at the top of the moon. We've been so bored here for 20 years. This is so beautiful. This is telling me that these societies, they wanted only the best of the best to get up here. They have no interest in helping these losers down there. This is kind of like a complete opposite. It's like, you found this monolith. Don't you get fucking near me. Like you guys are not qualified. Like, I'm here to observe you destroy yourselves. Don't touch me. Like I that's what I got out of it when they viewed that really scary, high pitched, like noise that happens. It's very frightening. Like
it's a jump scare. It's a moment. Yeah.
So that's that part right there is when the movie really shifts into like a true like techno horror film, like, kind of, to me. And it's instead of this kind of epic of like Western civilization kind of reaching.
Well, and what a horrible sinking feeling too. If you land on the moon, there's this monolith that's been excavated, you approach it, and it sets off a radio signal. Like, pure existential horror. Just wait a minute. And that's what's implied in the short story, The Sentinel. Like, I don't think we'll have to wait very long for them to arrive, right? Like, if some intelligence has put this here and then it shoots out a radio beam, it's like, it would be like the equivalent of, I don't know, like it's almost like a home invasion, kind of a terrible sinking feeling. Did we set off an alarm that's going to attract our destruction? I mean, and that very clearly parallels the nuclear anxiety of that era, in which we all just now get to live with and enjoy.
Yeah.
Although maybe nukes weren't real. I mean, I've been reading that online too, so I don't know.
There's something to be said. There's something to be said. I haven't delved into it, but some of my people that I would at least allow to steer me in the direction of some information and not disregard have said as much. So I'm interested. I am interested in that. But yeah, exactly. I have to view that because I can't just sit around hoping nuclear things don't happen. I have to do that as a way like, okay, if nukes are real, then what? Okay, then I blow up. All right.
Sure. Well,
yeah.
Right.
No,
well,
right.
What do you? Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. You just say Hail Mary and
stop, guys. Don't do that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know what just occurred to me, and I think I've always known this, but I've never articulated it. Is that then in this next passage, and you could probably expand this to the entire film. It's like someone like Kubrick is always thinking, who is the watcher of this film? And definitely during the period where they are voyaging to Jupiter and Hal is there, it's from Hal's POV.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe the whole thing is like, or a lot. Do you know? So like,
I think so too.
That would explain why the film feels cold. Yeah. Like you're so there you go. There's your perfect tight little metaphor. Yeah, I mean, and I'll give away a little secret about Basilisk because we're doing the same thing in Basilisk.
Yes, you are.
There you go. So take that and run with it. But real dramatists, well, not real. A lot of people, you cross a transom where you're as interested as you are in the drama of a specific scene, you're also thinking about the overall structure of the thing. And
absolutely.
POV, and Kubrick clearly was conscious of that.
I still think Blood Meridian is told through the judge's perspective, and the judge is the narrator. I do.
Oh, I think that right. I think the judge is the narrator and the reader. I think
I agree. I think it's just literally him telling a story, and like I've told that to some people, and they're like, maybe, and then they're like, yeah, I think so. That's like, there's certain, I love thinking about like, who's actually telling me this, you know? And so yeah, as you said, there's a mission to Jupiter now. There's it's 18 months after the moon or the moon incident with the monolith, I want to say 18 months after there is David and Frank. They are flying out. Everybody else is hibernating. Sucks for them, kind of.
Oh well, man.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. Actually,
you just go to sleep, and your family back home gets.
You might envy them actually by
life insurance. Yeah.
You might actually envy them by the end of this, and they might have already gone through the Star Child experience in hibernation. You know, they might have already like been doing that, and maybe Dave and them were hibernating the whole time too, man. Maybe I just hibernated. Man. Yeah, I know. That's glass table 3 a.m. conversation right there. But I love those. But the Dave and Frank are aboard. Again, it's kind of mundane. Frank is just running around in the ship. Beautiful shot of that that Kubrick would employ all the time later in The Shining, of Danny riding the little big wheel through the overlook. Kind of a similar vibe to that. And there's these beautiful it's kind of similar to the floating pen sequence, began introducing you in this great way, but then you see that Frank is talking to his parents, or receiving a message from his parents saying, happy birthday, we can't wait to see you soon. So it's understood that maybe this is just a quick little run, and then they're going back and stand by for later orders. These people do have a connection to back home, similar to the doctor from earlier being able to talk to his daughter and be like, can't make your birthday this year, but I'll be around. And what happens that I think is really, really good to set the scene for Hal is these, especially in 1968, this would just seem very Jetson-y, but Frank is laying down and he goes, Hal, can I go up a little bit? And his neck rest just goes up slightly. And that just lets you know Hal is in charge of everything. These people, we have innovated ourselves out of humanity at this point. And that's essentially sets the tone for the rest of the movie, which good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah, we're little meat widgets inside of our own tech. Yeah,
we are, and that's true. That's true.
It's a little frightening. Yeah.
I get it. This is scary. This is a scary movie to me. Like
absolutely it is. It's very, very scary. I can't imagine wanting to like imbibe some mushrooms and then going to see this in New York in 1968. That doesn't sound like a good time to me, but they were on some other wavelength at that point, you know?
Yeah. So that part is just like, I mean, Hal's voice is, "Hello, Frank.
Yeah.
This is so cool." And Frank, that's an exquisite drawing. You are getting better. And it's
we are now having the Hal moment in the culture with ChatGPT for sure.
And that infrared red eye, it's not moving, it's not doing anything, but yet it has the most, I would say, the most kind of a character of anybody in the movie. I mean, most even though the other guys go through absolute hell in the sequence, Hal is the one that's having the arcs, having the true villain arc that's happening, but it's just this solitary red light, and it's crazy. It's like, right now I'm looking at what we're recording. There's a green light on the top of my computer, and I'm fucking looking at it. And this might be, this is like White Lodge Hal that I'm looking at, because this is based. What we're doing is based and fun. But Black Lodge Hal is like, nah, hell no. This movie's very Twin Peaks to me, especially the ending.
Oh,
sequence.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Can I tell you too? I had the good fortune of visiting and if you ever get a chance, if they ever bring this to the States, the Kubrick exhibition at the Design Museum in London in 2019. My friend, buddy of mine said, you got to go see this. So I show up, and it was actually meeting Abby, my co-writer of Basilisk. I was meeting her later that day. So I show up, and it's a timed event. So it's like a walkthrough thing. So you have to, you have to get a ticket, and you get a 30-minute window, right? So you go through it. So I get my ticket, I come back, and the exhibition is one of the greatest exhibitions I've ever seen, because I don't anyway, I'm not a design thinker first. I'm a story thinker first. But when you go through that exhibition, you just realize how on point his design sensibility was. It starts with, you're on the carpet from The Shining. And then you walk in, and then it's just stuff from all of the different movies. It's like the Korova Milk Bar. They have like the statues, nice. Dude. Oh, they had the typewriter from The Shining. They had the maze from The Shining. They had the masks from Eyes Wide Shut. Now, hear me out. I'm a huge fan of Jocelyn Pook, who did. She had 2 of her tracks were pulled by Kubrick to score the famous scene in Eyes Wide Shut, the chanting scene. So those 2 tracks in the house that Cruise's character goes to, where he shouldn't be, that's her music. Okay, and I'm a playwright, so I wrote one of my plays like exclusively to her music. I was just listening to it the whole time, right? So nice. I get out of this exhibition, and suddenly I hear boom, boom, boom. I hear this music going. I walk out of the exhibition, and it's Jocelyn Pook and her ensemble. And it was the one day, I had no idea this was going on. It was the one day they were there to perform at the exhibition. I couldn't believe it. I was so blessed, man. I just sat there, and I watched them do 3 songs as their warm up. And I didn't even stay for the show, but I was like, okay, it was amazing.
No, anyway. you got to just take that one as like you got to keep it as this synchronicity, and not and just kind of walk by it, like it's really cool. Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was so beautiful, man. Yeah. And I was over there actually for Dead Can Dance. You ever listen to Dead Can Dance?
No.
Check them out. Yeah, you check out Dead Can Dance. It was such a 1-2. I got to hear Jocelyn Pook one day, and then the next day Dead Can Dance, which was
insane.
A banger. Yeah. Well, anyway, so that design exhibition, it was just crazy. And the punchline, I guess, bringing it back around to 2001, is that they had the little Hal. And you're like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, and he's just a little motherfucker, man. Like, it's just you can already hear it. And I feel like, dude, so weird. I get like Hal ass like replies from people where I'm like, dude, who the fuck are you, man? And like they're like bereft of any like actual humanity. And I'm like, man, I the sad part is I know this isn't a robot. This is a person. Like, people just become Hal, which sucks. And we talked about this with Brad. The first time we had Brad on. Brad is so, Brad is hell-bent against AI, and I love this for him. And I'm kind of the same way, where it's kind of like, okay, the scary part about AI is not so much the technology itself. I do think it is kind of scary, and it's really not worth developing, in my opinion. But the scariest part is that people just will eventually succumb to the fact that they're fine with just like everything being made by it, because if everything's made by it, you then are forced to like it because you don't want to be the weird guy that doesn't like anything. And then you just basically conform to these HAL type people who are just mission forward, mission forward, mission forward. And
well, I think we could get behind AI if we knew that we lived in a political environment where
Sure.
it would mean a 3-day weekend or a 20-hour work week, but that's not what it's going to mean.
No, of course not. Nobody
'Cause
pours
we know-
money into shit for that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
They're never gonna take the boot off our throats.
Yeah.
You know.
Like you can watch, like I watched the latest Mad Max movie, the Furiosa, which I liked more than most people. You know, most people don't seem to like it. There is a weird, like, they're doing like to make the child look like Anya Taylor-Joy. They did this like AI thing that sticks out like a sore thumb, even though Mad Max has that quirky kind of like almost clay stop motion animation quality to it from George Miller. It stuck out from beyond that. And I was like, you know what? The sad part is I think a lot of people are just going to be okay with this. Like, I don't think there's going to be a revolt against that. And I'm like, that I hate that the demand will just shift to like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn, do you? I mean, it already happened with animation, right? God,
Yeah.
could they even make it like a classically animated Disney movie? Could we?
Wouldn't be
will we
worth
ever
it.
see another?
Would not be
Right.
worth it.
But I mean, God, you go and watch 101 Dalmatians. It's like, it looks like fine art now. It was fine art. I mean, some of the frames in that film they're masterpieces. It's incredible. I mean, at least we have them. But I mean, as soon as the turn to CGI happened, yeah, everybody you just shrug and go, okay, this is what it is now, I guess.
Yeah.
What did you think of Dune 2, Glenn? Have we talked?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. You know, I haven't. It's weird. I have a weird relationship with Dune. I don't think you're gonna like my answer. I could not. That was one of a very few books I could not finish. Frank
Really?
Herbert. I really just.
Okay.
I was like, I had no way to penetrate this book at all. And I understand you're supposed to submit, but I felt like I would read a page and I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like at all. Like I'm just like,
Okay.
like I'm going through it. Because I'm pretty diligent. Like I finished things. I'm going through Thomas Pynchon's V right now, which is very good, but it's very tough to read. But with Frank Herbert,
Herbert, Frank Herbert.
Yeah, Frank Herbert. Yeah, I'm just like, man, it's like not. I just couldn't do that. The first movie I saw, I was like, the Lynch movie. You know, it's okay, I guess. But like the first. The Denis Villeneuve movie,
Villeneuve,
I was like, this is good. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's like this is good. I have not seen the second one.
I famously went on the record for the first one going it's like a B, it's like a B-. I wasn't even sure. And then 2, I went and I saw 7 times. I became obsessed with 2. 2 rocked and I never do that. I never go back twice. 2 rocked me. Maybe it was like a part of where I was in life or whatever, but dude, it was like a movie was made for me. Like it just felt like, oh my God, this is it. And then I realized like 1 and 2, it's one movie. It's one movie. And so I don't know, give 2 a shot at some point.
I will.
That's all I'm
but
say.
I was there's those shots of Hal at first where you can see I think it's Frank running around, jogging around in the kind of like zero gravity area. But he's going like counterclockwise in the eye of Hal, which is really beautiful because it's just like, this is Hal. You know, Hal owns you. Then Dave is playing chess against Hal. You get the idea he doesn't beat Hal very often unless Hal wants to.
Hal would have to let him win.
Yeah, Hal would have to let him win. And you just realize the whole time it's just these montages, as beautiful as they are. You can view them just in a literal sense of like, wow, this is just so beautiful to see and cool and kind of creepy. But you're also just he does such a good job letting you know that whatever Hal wants, Hal's gonna get in this. You know. To an extent, I guess. And so, you know, you end up Hal senses a little bit of mutiny on the ship, you know, a little bit of mutiny not great. And Dave and Frank realize that Hal made a quote unquote a mistake in saying that one of the things, little like, I don't remember what they are, but just one of the
pod. He's in a pod, and Hal reads their lips.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is the thing part he said failed, but they brought it in and it didn't fail.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I don't remember what it was. Just a
thing.
Yeah. Just
there's a part and
Mm-hmm. So they bring it in and they go, Hal got that wrong. Which did Hal actually get that wrong? You know, like did Hal actually? That's the problem, and that's the terrifying part of this is like humans have innovated beyond and have stunted their own intellect. These are doctors, very smart people, but they've innovated beyond that. But then also Hal's mistakes can't be read by humans. It's beyond human at this point. And even though it's meant to be in humans' image, right? Like, and Hal is vengeful, right? Hal is vengeful, which is actually kind of a fun godlike metaphor when you think about it. Is like, we are made in God's image. God's vengeful. You read the Old Testament, God is a vengeful God. He says as much in Exodus. And he's like, I am a vengeful, jealous God. So please stop building golden calves. I don't like the golden calf. Get rid of it. It sucks. So this kind of reminds me of that scenario as humans are building their own God in their own image, but Hal does vengeance better than they would. So it's the other way. It's engineering God rather than God engineering you, and the problems of that. I don't know what Kubrick believed in, but that's how I.
But I mean, even the film begins with Strauss and thus spoke Zarathustra. Also sprach Zarathustra, which is of course Nietzsche. Right. I mean, it's all this. So there is a Nietzschean thing. He's saying he wouldn't use that just for the sonic quality of it, although it's perfect. He's also pointing toward one of the leitmotifs of the film, or one of, if not, it's not a leitmotif. It's more like one of the capital A about meanings of the film. And it's just like you say, if we create a God in our own image, what does that make us? Again, it's just interrogating our humanity and the very essence of what we are. You know,
so true. That's so true.
It's great. It's really great. You're right. I mean, yeah. And what is our AI going to be like? Why wouldn't the AI we create be neurotic?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't the AI we create have daddy issues like we do?
That's what I mean.
How could we create something that isn't like us? And of course, this is very doctrinally sound. I mean, this is sort of when the church and the other Catholic Christian theology, when they say that sort of we are created in God's image. That's not said lightly. It's biblical, and there's also some very philosophical ideas inside of that. Because how could a God creator creature, being, whatever you want to say, a God, how could a God create something that is not of it, that it is not, that it would be unknown to it?
Exactly.
It would have to be God. And so in that sense, we are made in God's image, like almost literally. Like, you can read that phrase in multiple ways, as in like we are made in like almost like an imprint, like a microscopic imprint of God, but with the kernel of God that makes us like God in a sense. But you could also read it as like almost like a projector. We're like almost like on a movie that God is watching. There's so much going on. Deep thoughts with Glenn and Kevin on.
This is the glass table, dude. This is the dang glass table, the
glass table, dude.
It's amethyst glassed, but it's similar. But yeah, exactly. It's so fun. That's why his movies are so fun. Clockwork Orange was just his follow-up, which is hilarious when you get panned and then you make Clockwork Orange. Like, that's amazing. I mean, the guy just truly is Rorkean. Like, I'll build an even crazier building. Like, I'll build one that pisses you off more. Dude,
A Clockwork Orange is so gnarly.
It's great.
It's such a wild dude. He inspired, like, they would dress up. They dressed up like the Droogs, and there were like street gangs in the UK. They had to ban it in the UK because the youth went wild.
Exactly. So now you see now there's a shot of Hal reading lips, because Dave and Frank go like, Hal, can you hear us? Like, when we're
I'm there right now. I'm there right now. I'm watching that right now.
I can't hear you, Dave. Like, so, but also Hal can hone in, view the lips. It looks like a Ring doorbell cam sometimes, like a different color, but that's kind of scary. I hate those things so much. But they have, it's kind of reminiscent of that, but it's like, they're viewing them clearly talking about how Hal's lost it. Hal's fucking with us. Hal is not fit to be running the show over here. Like, kind of wanting to revert back to humanity, even though their whole life is about innovation and exploration and expansion. And then there's an intermission, which every podcast I listen to on this has arguments about whether that's a well-placed intermission or not, which you are insane if you think that intermission should have been after the monolith screeching at on the moon. I don't think
early.
It's too early. And for me, the intermission is scary. The intermission is scary. You see what happens, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? And I have to sit with this for a long time. That Hal can control everything in my life. That Hal can do this, and then I have to sit there or go get some popcorn or whatever. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Yeah, I would never argue against that intermission. Yeah, and I'm glad that it exists too. Like, I feel like movies could do that, but they'd never get away with it now.
No, because there's 30 minutes of previews. That's what the intermission is.
Oh, I hate the previews. I can't.
So much.
I can't go to. I show up late intentionally to avoid them. It's just horrific.
I
feel like I'm being waterboarded by. It's propaganda. I mean, we know that.
It is. I mean, because most of the time they sneak in a Marvel movie about like, that's like a allegory for like funding Ukraine or something. Sure. I just something. Sure. I don't know. Sure. But yeah, so basically it goes all bad, and you have all these beautiful soundscapes for a long time, lots of cool sounds that are happening. There's pauses in that, but then once Hal really goes like dark Hal, kind of like dark, with the laser eyes. Hal really gets laser eyes and starts basically deciding that the actual malfunctioning parts on the ship are Dave and Frank in Hal's eyes. So,
yes. These meat widgets of malfunction.
Exactly. This is the peskiest one, and they once that happens, it all just becomes, which is even more scary, the breathing in the air hose sound, the oxygen running, and while you're watching just terrifying stuff happen to poor Frank and Dave. I mean, I feel bad for Dave. Dave has to watch his boy die.
Yeah, it's horrible. And
he can't do anything. And then he can't get back in when he actually is able to go out there. He can't get back in. I don't think I can do that, Dave.
Oh, it is. It's the stuff of nightmares. You forget it.
So scary.
It's
so scary. And Kubrick, I mean, that's just so masterfully done. Just fast forwarding towards the end again, watch it. If just fast forwarding to the end, because there's so much more I want to talk to you about. There's the eventually the monolith, right? Because we're witnessing something crazy. The monolith is floating into this like almost division sign. And it's originally, because correct me if I'm wrong, you've read the book. In the book, they're going to Dave and Frank. The Jupiter mission is really like a way station, and their real goal is Saturn, right?
Right. My understanding is that they didn't represent. Is it Saturn, or they didn't represent one of the planets because of doing the rings in cinema would have been impossible.
Yeah,
something
right.
Like that.
So sure. And then I believe that the guy, the guy who made a lot of the designs ended up making his own movie later where he did have Saturn. I can't remember what the name is.
Here it is. The use of Saturn as the final destination of the Discovery mission rather than Jupiter, discarded when the special effects team could not develop a convincing rendition of Saturn's rings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's again the level Kubrick was on. Was like, well, we can't make this look right, so we're going to change the script and make it this. Smart.
Yeah, and it's great. And then basically, from my knowledge, and this is where the movie becomes open-ended, right? Open-ended to a lot of people. There's a lot of interpretation, and it's right. We're rightfully not, even though there's a more clear ending in the Arthur C. Clarke is so hard sci-fi that he really couldn't have an ambiguous ending in his story. But Kubrick decides, no, I think we're going to do a little something else. And there is a very kind of inseminating process, psychedelic insemination process that's happening where Dave, who basically has that terrifying scene where he finds a way to get back in without his helmet, clangs against the wall, but it's just silent. And then eventually is just shot through space, gets out of there in his pod. Who knows how far he can go, but he goes in through is it through the monolith? It almost looks like he goes through the monolith to me.
I think that's implied.
Yeah. Goes through the monolith. So then what even is the monolith? Is it this hard thing of metal? It can be anything, right? It's this kind of like all-seeing eye, kind of, in a sense, there for kind of like that's kind of like a Blood Meridian thing where these people, where the judge feels like this person who's always around just like terrible acts that kind of expand humanity. Monolith seems to be there, and Dave shoots through there, and then it becomes the psychedelic hippie thing. That one of the reasons that the hippies probably gravitated to this movie so much was, you take a little bit of acid during this movie. It's kicking in during that last act big time, you know, and you're really going to be peaking at that time. And Dave is just floating through space, floating through, finds this like time loop situation where he's able to observe all forms of his own life, whether it's, you know, this, whether he's 100 years old eating a dinner in like some weird like kind of Lynchian, what would later become like a Lynchian kind of lodge, kind of Black Lodge situation.
There is a lodge-like quality to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the end of that, I mean, to me, I think people try too hard to interpret what Kubrick's saying there. I kind of just feel like, to me, they hit a wall in expansion a little bit, like where it's like, okay, you've already expanded to the point of building a HAL, and maybe you're just not meant to do that. Like maybe that you're just not meant to do that, and then we're showing you the beginning again. We're showing you the end and the beginning again, and something like that. Like to me, I that's where I know in the book, like Starchild is like a kind of a hero at the end, or not a hero,
right? Well, they all launch nukes at it at the end, or something to that effect. There's like a whole nuclear narrative that's missing from the film.
And Kubrick's like, I've already done that once.
Yeah.
So
right. Read the book. I think the book is a perfect companion to the film.
Nice,
and they should go together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I just, you know, there's oh man, here's my take of what happened. Here's my take. It's just like, it's so kind of, it's really tough to write mysteries now for anybody, because everybody is a detective rather than like just engaging and enjoying it and being okay with maybe viewing a things a couple times and allowing your opinion to change rather than arguing with somebody with it on the internet. So that's kind of a interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, I want to move into some psychedelic stuff here in a sec, but like any last thoughts on the actual movie itself, the film?
It's a perfect film.
It is. There's nothing I would change.
There's not a thing I would change. Even the business with the shawl is, perfect.
It's amazing.
It's just let it.
Great.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. It's whatever. I mean, it's perfect. There's not a frame that is out of place. I'd be interested in seeing the original cut, but those frames are lost. Those minutes are lost, and
something.
There's no film that looms larger in the collective psyche. It was a game changer, and for the hard sci-fi bros, yeah, this changed science fiction. He wanted to make, that was what his phrase was. He was like, he wanted to make the proverbial very good science fiction film. When you don't get Star Wars without this, and without Star Wars, I mean, yeah. So he showed people what could be done.
Yeah. Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie, Robert Wise absolutely apes it. I mean, like apes 2001. And Robert Wise also did Andromeda Strain, which also reminds me of this a little bit in the, I mean, me being and you as well, being such a big Crichton head.
Crichton head.
Yeah. Like that I thought a little bit of an Andromeda Strain vibe to it too. So Robert Wise did both of those films. So that's interesting. Yeah.
It is amazing though, this passage, and I'm going to mention it because it's on my screen right now, but when he goes to rescue his comrade, it's an extreme act of heroism and humanity. It's not said, but he's really seriously putting his life at risk to go and save his friend, probably knowing full well that his friend's already dead too.
Yeah.
It's just, he just jumps into action and goes to do this wildly irrational thing.
But it almost seems like self-preservation, right? Because it's like, what, do I want to be on the ship with just Hal? Because Hal dies, right? Like people, Hal dies and reverts back into like a child almost, right? When Hal is killed by him, and it's like that almost feels like so human too. It's like it's just this kind of like when something's finally met its match, it turns into like an infant, right? Which is kind of how we deal with problems.
Well, right, and I mean, it isn't, and then that parallels what ends up happening to him at the end. He turns into an infant at the end, and that's strange.
And the meta narrative kind of thing with it, where to me, even just my viewing of this, when I haven't seen it for a while, I remember the beginning, the dawn of man, and I remember the end sequence. Everything else is like, oh, that's right, in the beginning. And guess what? What happens when you look back on life? You remember the beginning and you remember the end. A lot of times there's a meet in the middle that you miss. And it just
Sure.
kind of just, it's the ultimate life movie. And again, people say it's midwit, but I'm sorry, like we could use a little more midwittery in our.
I mean, is it midwit or is it something? I don't know. It's
exactly.
very highbrow and very lowbrow somehow at the same time. I mean, which I guess makes it midwit. But there's a lot in it, and listen, and it's so cool. Every new generation of teenagers gets to be 16, 17, 18, and they get to see this for the first time. The ones who give a damn, the ones who are get off TikTok for long enough to try something like this, hey, and if you're young out there, do it. Go watch this.
Show it to your kids
properly.
too.
Yes.
Put
your phone down. Go lock your phone up. Go lock your little handheld monolith away and like put it on and just like really screen it. Turn the lights off. Put it on your big TV.
Yeah.
Right. And go in.
Yeah.
It's always waiting for you. And and things have really been falling apart like in the world. But man, one thing that has gotten better is that like we have all the world's media at our fingertips now. It's crazy. I remember you would have to go out of your way. You'd have to go out of your way to get a good copy of this. Now it's like you just go to HBO, just go to Max or whatever, and there it is.
Yeah, and I do have a magnificent Blu-ray. Get the Blu-ray if you have it on DVD. We don't want this movie to go anywhere. Trust me. It's just get a physical copy of it. I will rewatch it many, 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 many times in my life. But there's a lot to happen because, I'm sure anybody who's been listening to Rare Candy for a long time, 2022 was a big moon year for us. We talked about the moon a lot there. There's a lot of really good old stuff there, good conversations. Cy wrote an article that I'm going to reference on here, Bob's Red Pill #6, about the moon. It's just called The Moon. Among his best, all of them are good, but this one, the Parasite one, and the Gobekli Tepe one, probably his best three, and most prescient, the one that you want to reread. That's at rarecandy.substack.com. Kevin has submitted some Gurdjieff stuff that I want to talk about, which is really, really interesting. By the way, I sent that article to Cy before we recorded, and he just sent me exclamation points back.
Glenn, yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, Gurdjieff said, man is food for the moon.
From the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix. With that red candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, can't do that shit.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about the moon on Rare Candy, and it's been a while, and this movie always gets my gears turning about it because there's so many. I used to be a complete moon landing denier, and there are some nuance to my take. Now, one thing I don't believe at all is that any of the footage that we see of the moon landing is real. I don't believe Stanley Kubrick directed it because it would never look that shitty, and I don't believe that what we're seeing was real. I do think we went though, and I think we go often because it also doesn't make sense to just go once and have one big massive one and then have these little subsequent kind of like kind of other missions. And because anything we do as Americans and Western, we're maximalists. When we find a new spot, we go there. We go there all the time. There should be Hiltons, Howard Johnsons, and space hubs out there for people to go to. So my my refined take, and I will say with Dr. Joseph Farrell, who you can catch a lot on the Dark Journalist website, YouTube channel. He's very, very interesting, very cool, very eccentric. He also has his own Giza Death Star, where he thinks that the pyramids were actually nuclear weapons with energy and stuff. Very interesting stuff. But he claims that we go to the moon all the time, like it's nothing. Like we just go all the time, and that there actually is like weird cosmic war stuff that's happening up there. And it makes more sense if we did go that we go all the time.
Yes. Yeah, no, it doesn't add up. Whatever the story is, it does not make sense. Oops, we lost the telemetry. I don't believe it. And the footage is garbage. The footage is not, a lot of it is not real. It's totally fake. It has to be. It doesn't add up. Just the fact that there are no stars, and that they have no stars in the footage because astronomers would have a field day and destroy it. There seems to be no footage of us on the moon with stars. And then also just like the staginess of it all, these phone calls, and everybody's watching it live with bated breath. And it was clear, even if you go with their major main narrative, it is fake. There's fakiness to the whole thing. And they all this stuff, they would bring this little rover up there, and you look at like the ship, and it doesn't add up. And then you're telling me we don't know how to go back now, apparently. It just, the whole thing is just so
the average computer back then. My phone is more powerful than the average computer.
Exponentially more powerful, like by orders of magnitude more powerful.
And because some people talk, like, there's a big kind of like, I'll say it's like dissident right kind of, but it's not. I don't believe that it's the ultimate thought from them. But a lot of them think it's just because we're incompetent now, and I think that's so reductive. It's like, no, that's not the case. It's not the reason. It's not DEI the reason we don't keep going back or all that stuff. So either there are secret missions. Either there are secret missions that go, or we never went. That's just the way I look at it.
Or we sent probes, or we sent drones, right? Like it. And at this point, if we're going, it's probably not manned missions. Yeah. Why would you risk a person? There's what benefit is there to be had, unless there's some dark occult secret that we don't,
Well, that's what Farrell. That's what. Like, there's always the theory. I have a friend who said, about the Masonic Temple on the moon. That's a fun one to look into. Like, there are. Look, I like these. I want to hear.
I love this stuff
throw
too.
Them all. There's people that roll their eyes at moon landing. So I want to hear everything.
Listen.
Yeah,
I got another thing to promote real quick. So, if you're in the Twin Cities this fall, we are doing a production of my play, Moderation, which is about social media content moderators losing their minds at work. Moderationplay.com. Even if you're not in the Twin Cities, go to moderationplay.com, because there's going to be stuff we're going to put there that's digital release. And there's a version of the play you can go online and find already now. But if you're in the Twin Cities, come out, because this is the world premiere of this play. And there's a whole thing about the moon landing in that play. Like, one of the characters, they're moderating content, and they're supposed to moderate these conspiracy theories, but the one guy starts to believe the theories, which actually happens to some of these moderators. So, but dude, the moon thing is just like, I don't know. It's just like, it's part of the whole boomer founding mythology. It's this like linchpin of their psychology, because without it, like the whole narrative somehow falls to pieces if we never put a man on the moon.
They love institutions. They love institutions so much. Part of the reason was because of something we talk about on here, like the polio era and all that stuff. And, again, we have an episode called Dissolving Illusions with Roman Bistrianic that will, in terms of disease stuff, there's interesting nuance that you aren't told there. I'll say that much. But then then you have the moon landing and all that stuff. And they go, why would they not trust every single party line on the current thing?
Why would you not pay your taxes? Like the subtext of it is, okay, maybe America is unjust. Maybe we actually are the great Satan sometimes. Maybe we're not perfect, but God damn it, we put a man on the moon, right? Like, it's this trump card that you can't it just makes everything kind of worthwhile. Goddamn it, we defeated the Nazis and we put a man on the moon, and so now we can get away with Vietnam.
By the way, but we put a man on the moon with Nazis. By the way, by Nazi
of course,
technology, which is so funny. It's really funny to think it's like we defeated them, but then my other crowning achievement, it wouldn't have been done without them, apparently. So kind of funny that happens. But again, there's a conquering element to that, I guess. But another thing that is another conspiracy that I think is really reductive, and I'm sorry to anybody that listens that might believe this, but it's not fun enough for me. Sorry. Space is fake. Hate it completely. I hate it completely for anyone that thinks space is fake. Because I'm sorry. No, I think God created way more than just the earth. I'm a God maximalist. And then also, Cy wrote in his article, kind of like, we said, instead of saying, did we go to the moon, which again, we've talked about it right here. Did we go to the moon? I like what is the moon? more so than anything.
Right.
And
Is it plasma?
yeah,
What is it? And I wish Cy was here. We'll have to do
I
this again
know.
sometime.
We
We'll
do.
do it. We'll find a way to do it sometime. But like, apparently there is a correlation between the new moon and the full moon and the Bitcoin cycle, so you can trade.
What? Oh,
I
he would
don't
love
know.
that. He would
Yeah,
love
I don't
that.
know. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, but
Yeah.
and then this whole Gurdjieff thing. Man is food for the moon. And was he being symbolic? Was he being literal? Are we literally being fed, to the moon? And then this whole 273 thing, this weird numerical. I mean, that Cy writes about in that Gain of Fiction. Is it a Gain of?
It's just Bob's Red Pill is
Bob's
his,
Red Pill.
thing.
Yeah.
He and the geometry of the moon and the Earth is quite literally, geometrically speaking, squaring the circle. The moon and the Earth, like the Earth, I think the diameter is 11:3, the ratio, which is squaring the circle. So
it's it's improbable. So you're telling me that this object exists. It's unique in the universe as far as we know, and it perfectly. Well, of course, it's unique, right? But it perfectly, periodically hides the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the perfect distance to do that. Doesn't that strike anybody as like too coincidental? Very strange. I mean, if nothing else, it points toward intelligent design, which is curious.
I think the moon I think the moon was installed. Dr. Joseph Farrell says parked, which I like. I like the image of someone parking it. I like that a lot. I believe it's installed. I believe it's a surveillance hub for the rest of everything else that's going out there. I believe that humans decided they wanted to go there because they knew that already, and Russia did too, and all that stuff. Whether or not we went there, I can listen to. I'm not married to the idea, but I think that's more interesting than just being it's all fake. The world's real, and God just created the world, and that's it. Like, and look, if in the Bible, I understand that's what it is, but I don't take the absence of space in the Bible as it's not there. I guess, like that's just kind of my interesting.
Just say it's the firmament. I mean, they saw star. I mean, stars led the wise men to God.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So.
And I think aliens could be a materialist way of trying to find a way to see what an angel is at times, or a demon. There's both. I think there's both.
It's entirely possible that what people are seeing when they're seeing aliens are angels, and of course, demons are angels as well.
Maybe a lot demons. It could be a lot of them are demons.
Sure.
I'm interested in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just there's a lot of that stuff that happens. But this Gurdjieff thing. Before we go, I just wanted to. I found it fascinating. You dropped it on me like 15 minutes before we recorded, so I was like, I skimmed it, but I'm like, this is incredible. So this is from GurdjieffClub.com, and it's Gurdjieff, the Moon, and Organic Life, and it's by Richard Myers. So I'll just say it right now, we exist. He might even, and you can correct me on this because I'm not well versed on Gurdjieff, and I think you've done an episode on him, or
I did. It was one of our early Art of Darkness episodes. Another one where I went a little longer. I was just finding my sea legs for that. Maybe 90 minutes on Gurdjieff. And I was a Gurdjieff head in college. I was reading a ton of his stuff. A very interesting way to get into him. The people who are into the fourth way stuff, they track their lineage the way that like karate guys track their lineage back to the original master. It's the same thing in the Gurdjieff, for the Gurdjieff people. Which branch are you on relative to Master Gurdjieff, right?
I see.
There's a fellow who you might really grok and appreciate, Glenn, because he's very California.
Nice.
Named E.J. Gold. And E.J. Gold is very wackadoo. It's very cool. He wrote a book called The Human Biological Machine as a Transformational Apparatus.
Nice.
And it's essentially kind of, and I love this book, but it's kind of Gurdjieff for dummies. It's like Gurdjieff, like written in a way that is accessible. And I read Gurdjieff directly. It is not easy to read. So the E.J. Gold book is really cool.
I see.
It gives you, and I'm not saying you're a dummy or I'm a dummy.
No, I am.
Like
philosophy.
Just like Gurdjieff was intentionally like obscuring a lot of this shit. And so if anybody wants to like get an exposure to the ideas of Gurdjieff, check out E.J. Gold, The Human Biological Machine as Transformational Apparatus. But here's what Gurdjieff said about the moon. Everything living on the earth, people, animals, plants, is food for the moon. All movements, actions, and manifestations of people, animals, and plants depend upon the moon and are controlled by the moon. The mechanical part of our life depends upon the moon, is subject to the moon. If we develop in ourselves consciousness and will and subject our mechanical life and all our mechanical manifestations to them, we shall escape from the power of the moon. So, and with Gurdjieff, it's hard to know how literal he's being,
right,
or how tricky he's being. Is the moon there standing in for the sort of fluidity and the inconstancy of this cycle that rips you to and fro, this sort of tide pulling you one way or the other. We know the moon has an extraordinary power over the planet. Women's cycles, the seas, the oceans, the tide, all of these things are related to the moon. So it stands to reason that we are well. And of course, I mean, again, just the fact that women's cycles are sort of synchronized with the moon to a degree, that alone is just like, or there's a correspondence there that should tell us that there's something important here. And I think Gurdjieff is sort of nodding to that. And his philosophy really is that everyone's born with a kernel of a soul, but a full soul is something that can be developed. You have to develop your soul, or else you're going to be an NPC, and you're just going to have your soul energy is going to be sucked away by the moon because you haven't sort of escaped the pull of this external force. That's kind of one of the things that he talks about.
And I could see easily a thing where God, because I think all things are done under God, right? All things are done under God. This does not change my opinion. I don't know what Gurdjieff believed in terms of that.
Well, Gurdjieff, I think he described himself as an esoteric Christian, finally.
I love it.
So he was sort of like a mystical. It's like a sort of a mystical Christianity.
Absolutely love it. Yeah. So and you can see what he's talking about, and I could see God installing a moon as kind of the hub, like, or did he install it, or was it installed by other life forms that we might confused for angels or demons or whatever, perhaps. But then also just like, that could be the pulling force. It has so much power over like certain natural forms of us, and to create a society that is able to be under God, but also we have the ability to do bad things to it and stuff like that. I can imagine look at what we do to women's cycles, not to get it down that conversation, like gets it away from the whole moon natural situation when you do it that way, when we do hormonal, birth controls and things like that. So we could stray a little bit further from that. And then also then we could see that the world could be falling apart in some way or another. And
right.
You know what I'm saying?
The pill is the other nuclear weapon of the 20th century.
Tough to disagree. And there's all, Gurdjieff, I'm looking at this article that there's, some people don't believe in this, and some people might think it's a theory that has missing links, but there's that giant collision hypothesis, right? Where apparently Mars collided with a young planet Earth, and the debris formed the moon, right? That's like kind of the kind of Sagan. I don't know if that's Carl Sagan-y, but kind of like that thing. I don't know enough to say that's real or fake, but it does seem very Neil deGrasse Tyson-ish. So I am a little bit like wary of that. But Gurdjieff held at the time that the collision that there's a collision of the smaller moon, which is called Annullios. That was how that was created. But 20 years after his death, that was actually scientifically verified. And again, quote unquote, scientifically verified, trust the science, whatever. It is interesting that lined up in that way. I could see it. And that doesn't mean we like submit to the moon, because I think the moon is still just it's kind of just a hub for God, like I could just see it being that way. And I do think there's more life forms created than humans. Some people might not believe that. I don't think it affects the way we should view each other one way or another. It's not it's not a hill I die on, but it's fun. It's fun, and it doesn't feel wrong to believe.
I love all of this stuff. I am open-minded. I'm willing to hear practically anything.
And I still pray every night. And I still pray every
absolutely.
night.
Of course. The Catholic Church would associate Mary with the moon, and there's all sorts of wonderful symbolism.
You look at it up in the sky, and you're just like, damn. That's crazy. You know,
right?
like,
It does well. I mean, and of course, in the 2001 book, that ape is called Moonwatcher.
True.
You know,
True.
so I mean, it's right there. I mean, it's all there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is all there, and like I said, I want to get you back on with Cy to talk more about this.
Glenn,
especially
what
with
a
that big
joy,
one.
man.
What a joy.
Yeah.
Tell me what's coming
Yeah.
up on Art of Darkness.
All right. So everybody go and listen to Art of Darkness, artofdarkpod.com. The
Please.
Cormac episode is out already for patrons. We call them our subs and our doms, Substack and Patreon. I've been taking a little break this summer, but I'm going to be coming in hot with, I think, a David Bowie episode is going to be coming next.
Which I'm demanding you have me on for a subsequent
absolutely.
Yeah,
we will do it. Yeah, we'll do a dark room. So we do, there are two
yeah.
main types of episodes on Art of Darkness. There are the core episodes. We've done almost like 80 of those. And then there are dark rooms where we have guests come on. Glenn is a frequent guest. Glenn,
Yes.
you will come back. Tell me what's your number one Bowie album, number one Bowie era?
Well, the era you and I are the same. The Berlin era is untouchable. Berlin to it's Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, basically, because that's technically post Berlin. But I would say I think I land on Heroes. But Low and Heroes are one album to me, so I listened to them subsequently. They have their differences. I think Heroes might be my number one Bowie album, because I think that's where it all came together, where he was able to have that pop hit nestled into an album that has so much more going on to it with it. And but I also really love The Man Who Sold the World. Like, I really love that album. I love, gosh, I mean, Black Star, you and I have talked about that. That is a masterpiece. One of the last like truly great, like jaw-dropping albums that's happened, in my opinion. And just of course the whole lore around it too, and everything is so cool. And gosh, I mean, it's tough because I get in different moods, because Bowie, if I had one artist, there's Prince and Bowie are my two favorite single artists of all time, because if I was trapped on an island and I picked one discography, I'd probably scratch every itch. Right, one of their discography. They have kind of like proper rock albums. They have kind of psychedelic albums. They have their R&B albums. They have their
those are the guys who like the promise of the Beatles. Like in those two men, the Beatles never broke up, right? It's all still going on, and that doesn't diminish what anybody did.
Totally.
But
what else? Yeah. But who else? You have Bowie,
Hitchcock? Well, we're gonna do Hitchcock with
Based.
Abby. Abby's gonna come on. We're gonna do Hitchcock, and I know Brad has a lot of good stuff coming up. I think I wanted to do Picasso at some point. There's so much we can do on Art of Darkness. The show is not going anywhere. We love doing it. It's a lot of fun. You'll come on, do Bowie. For me, Bowie, it's station to station through to like Low, Heroes, and Scary Monsters. That period is just the best.
As a playwright, station to station has to be
station to station is just perfect. Perfect record. I just love it. I love how he reacted to LA and everything. And in any case, so go to artofdarkpod.com. Go listen to Basilisk from Dark Pony Radio. I'm really asking you to go do that. Just if you're listening to this, go check that out. Part 1 is out now. Part 2 is coming. And then if you're in and around the Twin Cities, even if you're across the river in Wisconsin, tickets are already on sale for this. So go to moderationplay.com. There's a pay what you can night, so there's no excuse. You do that night in the Twin Cities. Hey, give us $5. You're going to have a good time. It's going to be an interesting play. If you're very online, if you're a Rare Candy listener, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to like it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And on our end, Gain of Fiction's in full force. Inching my way through Thomas Pynchon's V, which is harder to read than Brothers Karamazov to me, honestly. Like it's very rewarding and cool though. And we're taking it nice change of pace. Going to do some California classic detective mysteries. We're doing Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep, Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. So that's going to be kind of a 1A, 1B kind of episode there. And then after that, we're going to get into The Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. So there's lots of stuff going on. I think eventually, it would be fun, Kevin. I know it's so hard I hate when people just throw things on my pile, even though I love being busy. But you should come on and do at some point, because it's going to be part of season 2, Gain of Fiction. Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Have you ever read that?
I have not, but I would.
I heard it's sick, dude. I heard it's really sick. So at some point, that would be a fun way to do what we were talking about with some source material. So that I think I found our guy for that, because that will be part of that. And as you said, we're going to be collaborating a lot. There is on both of our paid feeds at rarecandy.substack.com, patreon.com/artofdarkpod. You can listen to our Apocalypse Now watch party, which was excellent, and that was on there. Covers basically the runtime of the whole movie, and. Everybody have a safe week. Again, there's much to come in the future, and Sai will be back soon, guys. He'll be back soon. So, catch you guys next time.